Welcome back to our newest episode of Beyond Titles, Who You Are Matters. This week, I have a very, very special guest. And this is somebody that I met when I went to receive my awards at the gala in Nashville back in December. And this is where Dr. Lisa Zaretsky and I met. And we just hit it off right away and became friends as well as colleagues. So, Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today for this very special episode.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. So, as you know, we're going to ask you some different questions than you might normally get in an interview. And so we'll just go back and forth, and this is just going to be fun, and we're just going to answer it from our heart, and it's all going to be great. Okay.
Yep.
So, with that, I'm going to ask you the first question.
Okay.
Are the three words others might use to describe you the same as the ones that you would use to describe yourself? And when we say describe, we're talking about an adjective, not a title, right? So what comes up for you when I ask you that question?
It's interesting you should say that. People describe me as being passionate, and I don't necessarily see myself as passionate. I see myself as caring. I see myself as intentional. I see myself as driven. I see myself as tenacious. I'm perseverant. I certainly have resilience and grit. And I often wonder if those characteristics shine through and yet are interpreted or misinterpreted as passion. I have passions and I have, significant interests and things like that. Um, and it's not typically in the areas that people think it is and where they think that I'm passionate about. I'm very intentional in my work and I'm very intentional in how I speak. And I'm often thought of as passionate and intense. So I do see that I can have a level of intensity about me, and yet I don't think it's the intensity that often is is perceived. And yet people like you, we connected on that level. You see that authenticity in me, and you see it differently. You see it the way I see it. So I also think it's a matter of who it is and what their life experiences have been, what their profession is, which is really life and people. We're all different, and we find our people, and yet we're all one in the same way. And some people are at different levels than others, and I think people connect on different levels as well. And I think that also goes into how people perceive you, and that's okay too. In the world that I'm in, especially in the mental health world, there's always, well, how do you say it and how do you perceive it? And there's these terms for it called theory of mind, and how can you put yourself in somebody else's shoes, and how do you listen as an engaged listener? All those skills are really important, and some people are more involved than others. And I think that that's a piece of it. And I also think life experiences is another piece of it. I've had a lot happen to me in my life, and I've had a lot of trauma, and I'm incredibly sensitive to people and situations, given the things that I've been through. And I think that's another piece of it. And it's just how you perceive life and how to choose to go about life that I think is part of that too.
So I'm curious now because we're both, you being in the mental health industry, myself being a coach dealing with health and life. So there's a lot of parallels, even though we're on
Yeah.
different levels.
Well, we're both
Um,
in wellness. So I would say that we're in the
right.
wellness area.
True. 100%. But as I'm listening to you, that you have a lot of great words that you describe yourself with.
Mhm.
I want to just throw out there to you that I feel like if I look back at my experience when I first met you, where other people may describe you as passionate, maybe for lack of a better way to define it, they're just feeling your energy because you
Mm.
give off a very positive energy. And when
Thanks.
we first met, you had excitement about connecting. Well, I don't think I really said much excuse me, I don't think I really said much, but you were very energetic about making that connection. And I think that in some people's perception, that could be interpreted as passion. So I would say that that's probably another word you could add to the list of, I think, 7 words that you gave us. Um, and just know that people are feeling the things that you're describing yourself as. They may just be giving it a different name.
That's true.
Okay. And so I appreciate you explaining all of that. Um, and I would say for you, passion and energy is very, uh, synergistic. So, you put a lot into your work. You mentioned that you've had some things that have happened to you over your journey. So I'm curious to ask you, what wouldn't be like it is today had you not been a part of it? And what value did you add?
That's a loaded question, although it
That's what I'm
seems
about, Lisa. I'm about
yeah,
loaded questions.
it's a loaded question, although it seems simple, it's really not. Because if you think about it, and when you sent this question to me, I was like, because there's so many things that I've done where I go back and I look back in my life and I do the woulda, coulda, shoulda game or the regret game, and I have to catch myself really quickly and redirect my mind and remind myself that everything had to happen for a reason and everything shaped the way I am and how I am today. And I say this to a lot of my clients as well as colleagues. If I had to, people say, like, how'd you get to where you are? Or what, how are you in this field? Or how are you doing what you do now? I literally don't know. I feel like I just landed here. Nothing was planned. I mean, I do know. I see the dots. I see that I'm driven. I see I go this way, but I feel like I'm pushed or life pushes me. And then the next thing happens and the next thing happens, or the next goal I accomplish and the next goal. And it's sort of the dots connect. Um, so if I think back, there are things that if I would have, could have done, and you and I talked about this off air, that I would have made different decisions, sure. And would I be in this seat talking to you right now? No. We probably wouldn't have even met. So that's why I say it's a loaded question, because we all do that in our heads. And sometimes what's the purpose? Because it is what it is, and we are where we are, and we're here where we're here. And it shaped me in the way that I am today. And some of it was conscious choice and some of it wasn't. And I think we also all do what we do with what we know at the time. And I can honestly say that everything I've done was with the best of intentions, with a whole heart, with the best that I knew. Was it always the right decisions? Was it always the best decisions for me and others? Likely not. However, what I hold true in my heart is that I really know that everything I did with a whole heart and the best of intentions with what I knew at the time. So the value that it adds, what I did do or I didn't do, I think either way, it's always been with my whole heart and the best of my intentions. And I think that adds value always.
And so I'm just going to kind of throw a little reverse on this
Go
uh,
for it.
to go a little bit deeper on this. And I'm going to ask you, if Lisa didn't exist, what would be different? And why would that leave a void?
Hmm, that's a profound question. If Lisa didn't exist, well, my 3 children wouldn't be here. And they're a gift, in my opinion, to the world and to me. And the clients that I've helped, um, I don't think would be in the same place. I hope somebody else would have been able to help them in the way that I did. And I'm so grateful to say I've helped people out of significant trauma when they thought there was no other way. I've helped people out of addictions. I've helped people out of being stuck, financial situations, professional situations. I've helped many children and families um, find the right education, get the right help. Um, be able to find the right fit in schools. I've helped many schools and educational environments change their culture and be able to meet the needs of their populations in different ways and in more fruitful ways. I've helped businesses and organizations learn where their gaps are and be able to meet the needs of their customers and clientele and population in different new ways. So, could somebody else have done that? Probably in the ways that I did with, the flair that I have and the touch and the care and the combination of all of my training and life experiences, likely not. And there's a 40-year list of that. So, um, my guess is that there would be different imprints and blueprints in all of those people's lives and all of those environments had I not existed.
And I appreciate you sharing that because I believe that in any business, no matter um, whatever our industry is, the people that we're going to attract that are going to want to work with us are going to relate to who we are.
Mm,
And so if you weren't here, they would have had to look a lot harder to find somebody that they could connect to the way they connected with you. So I believe that if you weren't here, those people might have ended up going through a lot of struggles a lot longer, and you
mm,
added a lot of value to a lot of lives. So thank you for
thank you.
sharing all that. You're welcome.
Wow, thanks, Lynn. That's actually very impactful and that really hit my heart. And that's gonna stay with me. I really appreciate that.
Good. Okay. So, as you've already discovered, I only ask powerful questions. So the next question is, what's one thing about you that doesn't change no matter what changes around you? And why is that important?
I operate with my whole heart. I am a very heart-centered person, no matter how hard I've tried in the past not to be. Uh, it is just who I am. And no matter who's hurt me, no matter what, my heart always steps in. I tend to be a very empathetic, compassionate, caring person that's bursting with love. And even when I'm angry, there's still that underlying love. Um, and so I would say that that's the one thing that stays consistent in spite of or despite how I'm feeling, what's happened. Um, yeah, and sometimes that's painful too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We didn't say it was a positive or a negative. And quite frankly, I firmly believe that you cannot have one without the other. But I think that's
Yeah.
extraordinary to be a person that no matter what the situation is, you always react with a full heart. And so I thank
Yes.
you for that. I can see it.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I will say that also pain is in some ways is a construct of the mind. And so while I am operating that and I say it's painful, it's also that we all have these basic needs. Maslow talks about that, and we're all programmed within society in a certain way also. And we're also human and have human development and human needs. And there's the ego and there's that side of us. And then there's that higher consciousness that we either are thrown into, elevating into, or seek, or maybe a combination of both. And I would say that for me, and I see it in a lot of people I work with, um, when they are thrown into pain and they learn that pain is a construct of the mind, it is another way to achieve that higher consciousness. Not to not feel, you have to, feel to heal. Um, However, maybe to move through it, and to continue going, to continue going. And even if you are feeling like sometimes my nervous system feels like it's on fire, right? That's a trauma reaction. And so sometimes my mind is in a different place than my nervous system. And what I do with clients and I do it with myself too is still be who you are, still go forward with your whole heart. And how do you take one step forward in front of the other in spite or despite how my nervous system is reaction, how my body is reacting, how everything else around me is acting. And I think that's the key also to stay true and authentic to yourself.
I think that is the most important, which is why we talk about who you are matters. So, with that, let me ask you, what's the most important thing that you want someone to know about you, whether it's business or personal, when you meet them for the first time?
I want them to know that I am authentic and I have integrity, and that, like you said, when we met, I do like to connect with people. It happens to be a strength of mine. I can go out and talk to anyone because I enjoy meeting people and I enjoy meeting different types of people that are out there and that experience and expanding my circles and um, just seeing what the world has, out there. And so, um, I would want them to know that about me, that I'm genuine, authentic, and there's an authentic connection because you can meet a lot of people and there's a lot of BS. And yet when you meet people who share your authenticity, like when you and I met, that's a gem. And that's also such a profound and an important and enlightening experience. And so it's like going through like a cave when you get the diamonds. It's so worth it. And so I would say that, those that I meet for the first time, know that you're meeting somebody who's authentic and genuine with a lot of integrity.
Thank you. I appreciate you answering that. So, this will be a little bit of a shift. Who inspires you to be the best that you can be and why?
That's a really good question because when I first read it, I was thinking of people in the past. Like Viktor Frankl inspires me. He just the way that he goes about life and the way he's directed his mind and how he rebuilt. Um, I think about him all the time. And when I am feeling in those places, sometimes those dark places or those painful places, I always think about him, and what he's been through. So I tend to think about people, or I think about the hostages that have been returned and their resilience and how they keep going and what they've had to say and how they made it through. So I'm incredibly inspired by people like that and their resilience, their grit, the way they are able to direct their mind. I find that incredibly inspiring. And then there are those who go after their goals and their dreams and, do not let anything get in their way. Like the author of Harry Potter, for example, how many times was she down and out and just kept trying and trying, and she met her goal and her dream, and she now, she's had impact on millions and millions of people's lives, and she herself, elevated herself in her life. So I think of both extremes and people like that, and I'm inspired by people who are able to do both, who are able to direct their mind and continue to persevere to achieve their goals and their dreams and have impact on others in a really positive way.
I definitely appreciate how you really had some thought about that. Um, and I appreciate the things that you shared. I know that you mentioned before that you describe that your people describe you as passionate, even though that wasn't one of the words that we first talked about. But I'm going to ask you what you're most passionate about and how does that connect with what you do?
Well, I'm most passionate about being a mother, and I've always been most passionate about that. I always wanted to be a mother, and I was blessed to be a mother, and I always felt so grateful to be able to be a mother. And when I was raising my children, I just, that to me that was they were my number one passion, and motherhood was my number one passion, still is. Um, First and foremost, like yesterday, I was in a meeting, and it was late, but I was in a meeting, and it was in my office, and my 31-year-old son called, and I took the call, and I haven't spoken to him in a while. And I said, "Excuse me," to the people I was in the meeting with. And I said, "My son is on the phone." And after I connected with him, because I was so grateful to connect with him after we've been spoken in a while, um, I said, "Can I call you back? I'm in a meeting." He said, "No, I have to go on to blah, blah, blah." And so I said, okay. And I kept talking. And he said, don't you have to go? I said, you're my first priority. I said, I already told them I had to excuse myself for my son, and that still remains. And I meant that with my whole heart. And so it doesn't matter how old they are, it doesn't matter what it is, they are my first priority. And I was so grateful to be able to connect with him and talk with him because that to me is a gift and there's nothing better. So I couldn't think of anything I'm really passionate about other than that.
I think it's an amazing thing when the thing you're most passionate about is being a mom and connecting with your children. As we previously had our conversation, I mentioned to you that I also have two sons, and I understand that passion about being connected to your children and how important they are. Um,
Yes, and that always came first. And in spite of it, despite everything, I put them first. And that's not everyone's philosophy.
mhm.
Um, and I learned a lot from that too. And there's definitely pros and cons and wins and losses. However, they always came first. I would have jumped in front of a train for them, and so that's just that kind of passion. When you talk about passion,
Mhm.
it's just an adjective or a phrase I would use to describe the kind of passion that I put and felt and still feel about motherhood. And it doesn't mean you do everything right. I've made plenty of mistakes. There's no handbook and there's no guidebook or instruction manual, and life gets thrown at you. And in my situation, life got thrown at me big time, lots of times. And I had a lot of traumatic events, and I still did the best I could with what I had to rise above. And no matter what, with my whole heart, they came first. And whether that was perceived or not, I couldn't tell you. But what I could tell you is that that's truly the only thing that I could come up with when I read your questions.
All right, but so let me ask you this. You spoke from your heart about your passion for your children, about how they always came first, and you made sure to emphasize that if you were in a situation where if you had to make a decision to cut somebody off, you had to take your child first, and that's amazing and very important to a lot of us, right? But how do you connect that passion that you have as a mom to what you do?
So that's a great question. Being in that situation in terms of having to advocate, having to do whatever I had to do, knowing that, first of all, I work with a lot of parents and
Mhm.
all of my experiences shape how I work with them because I've been there, I've had it, I've done it. And my my gains, my losses, my mistakes, my wins all play a role in that as well. And that kind of passion to help and be and do with my whole heart plays a role in my everyday work. I always, no matter who I'm working with before I start, I always ask God to work through me and let me be the messenger. I always say I'm the expert guide and I have the methodology and the training and the experience. However, let me be the guide that God works through. And I mean that also with the same kind of passion that I feel about motherhood. And we get to work. And so I would say it comes out in a different way, in a different flavor, but along the same frequency within the work that I do.
I appreciate you answering that. So, we've talked about a lot of different things that are about who Lisa is as a person. I know that we've connected about a lot of those things, and it's incredible to hear someone who really cares about the people that they help, as well as being as passionate as they are with the people that are in their immediate family. I know that you're a licensed mental health professional. I'm a certified coach, but in the same way, we feel the importance of taking our life's journey and really helping those the way we kind of wish somebody would have been there for us. And I think that's part of why we connected so deeply. If someone here is listening and connecting with who you are and what makes you special, I would love for you to be able to share some information about how they can connect with you. But before you do that, I would really ask you to share what you would say if you introduced yourself as if you were your best referral or testimonial. So, what would one of your clients have said about the amazing work you've done together?
I'm really grateful that almost in every testimonial, the client says in working with me that their life has changed for the better and has completely transformed, and that I have been the vehicle to help them guide them through that. And I have had the privilege and the honor to watch people transform their lives so incredibly and profoundly. It's magical, especially with the hypnotherapy coaching program that I developed. When I have clients go through that, it's a 3-month program that I designed. And when I have clients go through that and from where they were and from the beginning, and we go through where have you been, where you are now, and where do you want to go? And then we go through the 3 months and the transformations we see in the 3 months. It's incredible. And then when I touch base with them a month, 2 months, 3 months, sometimes a year later, it's truly incredible. And their goals and what they put out there and their destinations unfold in that way. And so I'm very grateful to say that I've seen that with my own eyes, and the referrals will say that what you see is what you get, and that she helps to change your life and has a positive impact on us and the people around us. And I'm so grateful for that as well.
That's fantastic. We not all of us can always say that we have all of those great referrals, and it sounds like you get a lot of great results. I think something I'm going to
Uh,
take license here to say that I think you'll agree with me that it's important for us to let this audience know that we have gone as far as getting to a point of getting awards and having multiple accolades. We've gotten to cross a stage and have a red carpet photo shoot, and that's a wonderful thing. But we also want people to know out there that the reason that we do what we do is because everybody has a journey, and not every journey is all positive. There's always going to be something that feels like a trauma, whether it's a physical trauma or an emotional trauma. It's not defined by the word trauma, it's defined by the person who feels it. And
yes,
both of us are on a journey to help those people, because there's no one out there that's living a perfect life that hasn't experienced something.
that is so
And
true.
so the people that are out there listening should know that if they're connecting with any of those traumas that we may have talked about along the way, the most important thing is you should know that you don't need to stay there. Whether you need to speak to someone who can do what Lisa does, or if you need to speak to someone like me, there's a way to get from here to there. And that's what both of us really want you to know. And we share those traumas so that you know you're not unusual. You're part of a greater percentage of people than you could possibly imagine. And you can get where you want to go. You just have to choose you first and say to yourself, who I am matters, right?
Amen to that. Yes, absolutely. We take people from being stuck to fertile ground. We show them that there's light on the other side of on the other side there, and we help them through to that. And I think that's a big key. People who feel stuck in their trauma and interpret whatever it is, it shapes their feelings, their thoughts, their beliefs, their actions. Uh, there's fertile ground, and it's going from stuck to fertile ground that I think is matters. And fertile ground doesn't mean everything is blooming. Fertile ground means is that there's always potential and that you are limitless.
I'm so excited that we got to spend this time together. I think it's so important for our listeners or our viewers to be able to know how they can get in touch with you if they want to learn more about who you are and what you do.
That would be great. I would love to connect with your listeners. And So I have a new website launching next week. It is www.zaretsky, Zarettsky hyphen wellness.com. In the meantime, they can go to drlisazaretsky.com. And once the new website launches, there will be a redirect to the new website. Very excited for that new website. It's gorgeous and it really goes much more into detail and comprehensive about everything Zaretsky Wellness does. And they could also email me at lisa@zaretsky-wellness.com. And I am on social media. So they can go to Instagram at Zaretsky Wellness. They could go to Facebook at Lisa Zaretsky. And they could go to LinkedIn at Dr. Lisa Zaretsky.
Thank you so much for sharing all that information. I hope that is definitely beneficial to some of you out there. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this very special episode with this very special guest of Beyond Titles, Who You Are Matters. We started this to highlight all the members of Inner Power Partners. If you'd like to learn more about Inner Power Partners, please go to innerpowerpartners.com, or you can email me at ipp@itzwhy.com. And I look forward to hearing from all of you about how you feel about this wonderful guest on this wonderful episode. We look forward to seeing you on our next episode of Beyond Titles, Who You Are Matters.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.